All right, you guys, right now we are going to learn about YouiDraw and how to utilize some of the tools that are on here. So you may know some of them, but we're still going to go over it together. So when you first get into YouiDraw, you'll have all of these different options. So I mean, like, you can scroll and scroll and scroll and continue to scroll, and there's so many different options for you. Now, this is great if you're in a pinch, but for this class, we're not really going to be using any of those. You could also come to the side here and like specify what you're looking for. What I want you guys to do 99% of the time is you're going to go up to the top here where it says start from blank, and you're going to click on it. And then it will open another window for you. There we go. So it's going to open another window for you, and this is going to be like your paper or whatever, and then we can get started. So real quick, a couple of things to note is up on the top is an undo and redo button or a delete button. I also will use commands such as like Control Z or just backspace to delete something. Control Z like undoes things. So you could also use those commands. They work in this program as well. Grouping or ungrouping things is important for when you want to move things together. Like, let's say you made a paw print and you want to move the whole paw print, but the like toes are separate. So if you group them together, it's easier to move. Then we've got these guys up here, which we will talk about. And then a grid you probably won't use as much, although it can be helpful when you're really wanting to get things precise. Layers we will totally talk about. And then your user is you and exporting it a different way if you need to. Over on the side here are all of your tools. So if you ever need a tool, it is on the side. And I'm going to go back over to the right. This is where we can change the size of our shapes, or we can change the colors of them, those kinds of things. So right now I have my background layer, and it's just white. If I wanted to change that, I can come over here and double click where it says fill, because right here it says background, and double click. Oh, sorry, I have to click fill first. I forgot about that. So I can click fill, and then I double click my white box and I can change it. So if I wanted it to be yellow, then I can click yellow, and now my background is yellow. So I don't have to make anything different or put like a big, sometimes you have to like put a big shape in the background. So we don't have to do any of that. We just fill it with a color. All right. And then if like you're looking at it and you're like, ooh, I don't want it, I can click off. Or if I want to see like some of my details that I have on without my fill, without my color in my background, I can always click this. So as we go along, we can always click this. One thing I really discovered is that your layers are very, like, they're stuck. Okay, so layers are so super important because when you're working on something, you want to be able to, like, if you go back into the paw print example, if you want to work on the paw print, I want to be able to just modify that one paw print. I don't want to have to worry about accidentally selecting something else. So that's why we have each thing on layers. I did discover that you cannot rearrange layers like you are able to in Illustrator or Photoshop. So my suggestion would be to make a ton of them. So I'm going to make like 10 layers here. I may not need them all, and I can always delete them later on, but it's always better right now, what I have found out, to make all of your layers and then go from there. So my thing is to start from the bottom up. So even though you have layer 1 here, I would start from the bottom up, because whatever is on the bottom is in the background. Yes. So whatever, unless I'm wrong, which we can figure that out as we go along, but whatever's on the bottom is in like the sort of the background of your piece. So I'm going to actually holy cow, I'm going to label this. So I'm going to double click here, and then I'm going to label this shape. Oops, I got out of it. I'm going to label this shapes, because we're going to work with shapes on this layer. So now I know that this layer has all of my shapes on it. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pick a square to start off with, and I'm just going to click and drag, and there's my square. Right now, I have an outline of black, which you guys can see, and I have a fill of white. If I wanted to change those, I could double click over here, but I can also come over here and change them. So let's say I wanted my fill to be, I don't know, navy blue. We've got that going on. And let's say I wanted my stroke or my outline to be teal. That looks cool. All right, so now it is teal on the outside, but it's really hard to see. So if I wanted to make my outline thicker, I can come and press this button and it can make it really thick for me. I could even change it to make it a dashed line if I wanted to. There's so many different things you can change it so that the dashes are more round on the end instead of square, which right now you can't see because it's so far away, but all these different things you can totally mess around with. So I am going to make a circle next because I want to show you the circle. So or the ellipse tool, whatever you want to call it, if I want to make a perfect circle, I'm going to hold shift down and then I will click and drag. And no matter what direction I go in, I have a perfect circle. All right, so this is filled in the same way. I'm just going to change the inside. I'm going to change it to like a gray blue. All right. Now, if I wanted to make like an oval or an ellipse shape, I can go make sure I have this selected, and then I can drag it, and whatever angle I go at, it'll be that shape. It's not perfect anymore because I'm not holding shift. All right, so then I have these two areas, and you can do the same thing with the different polygon shapes, those kinds of things, just stretching them, pressing shift to get it to be, sorry, it didn't work. Pressing shift to get it to be perfect if you wanted to, whereas this isn't perfect because I didn't press shift. I'm actually going to delete that last one because I don't really want it on my page. And I am going to delete this one too. So I can either press delete up here and it gets rid of it, or I can just press backspace. I want to show you how to join two things together. So we're going to be working with these little guys up here. I want this to be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to just stretch it out. So when I click on it, I can also come here and that little rotating guy comes around. All right, so I'm going to take this and I'm actually going to overlap it onto my circle because I want to make these two things one shape. I'm going to stretch it so that this side here sort of looks like it goes together. I'm going to pull this circle out so we can see right now. It's hard to see. Now, I'm overlapping these two, and I do not want to do that because I like my square, and I want to keep my square like that, and I don't want to change it. If I keep the square with all of this, then it could potentially get in the way, and I change my square. So I'm going to click in my background and hold and drag, and I will select both of these items, and then I can move them wherever I want to move them. Okay? All right, so I'm going to click and drag because when I want these two to be together, I have to select both of them. If I just select one, then I'm not putting it together with anything, right? So I'm going to click and drag and select both of them again. And up here it says union. So union means that you're putting two things together. So here you can see the middle line went away, and now these two items are together. Now, if I wanted to undo that because I don't like how this looks over here, I do Control Z, and now they're two separate items again. They're just sort of selected together. Let's say I wanted to subtract this big oval from the circle in the background. I go up here and I subtract it. So whatever is in front, I'm gonna undo that, whatever is in front will be the one that's subtracted. So let's say I wanted to change that. If I click on my circle and I right click, up here it says arrange, and I want to say bring to front. Now that's in the front, and I click and drag again. And if I say subtract this time, it'll subtract away the circle. So now I have this shape. So there's lots of cool things that you can do with this tool. All right, we're going to go back. I'm doing Control Z. I'm going to do intersect. So I'm going to show you all of these things. So intersect means that it will get rid of wherever they no, it won't get rid of, sorry. It'll keep wherever they overlap or they intersect. So I'm going to click it, and that is where they overlap. This is like subtracting and intersect is such a really useful tool. When you want odd shapes, you can just layer them and get rid of them, right? Get rid of the things you don't want. So I'm going to do Control Z again. So intersect and exclude are opposite. So intersect kept the areas where they overlapped, exclude takes away. So now I have that in the middle. So you can see how you can get some really cool things in here. All right, last but not least is divide. So what divide does is it takes everything and it makes it separate. So we'll have 3 different shapes here. All right, and if I do this, they all move together because they're all grouped together, right? So if I click outside of it and I click this shape and I move it, and I click this shape and I move it, you can see that now there are 3 different shapes. So this is a very useful tool as well when you want to like create things in a certain way. This just, I remembered here. So this part here, this yellow part is like my canvas or my paper. So if anything is hanging off of it, if I were to print this, whatever is hanging off will not show. So if I made this shape, but I wanted it hanging off, I don't have to come in here and erase or anything like that. Just leave it hanging off. It doesn't even matter. So just leave it. So that's one nice thing. All right, so that's all for shapes. I'm then going to, oh, here, and then what you can, sorry, go back to your layers. Oop. In here, it has all of my different shapes for me. And if I click on them, it selects them. I can also, if I go over to the right here, lock this shape so that it cannot be moved. And I can also take this shape like and sort of make it so I can't see it. Like if I needed to see behind it or something, and then I can bring it back. So that is really useful on this side. If I don't want to see all these shapes and like this shape thing is okay, I just close it up. All right, and then when I go to a different layer, let's say I'm on layer 8, I can't select any of this stuff. I can't pick it up. I can't do anything because I'm not on the shape layer, which that is where your layers come in really, really handy. On layer 9, I'm going to double click and I'm going to label this. Oops, again, I did it again. Pen tool. All right, so I'm going to label it the pen tool. I want to talk about the pen tool real quick. Over here is the pen tool. And I love the pen tool. I want you guys to get used to it. Yes, you can use the arc tool. Yes, you can use a line tool, but the pen tool just is really nice and smooth. So I want you guys to try to get used to it. If I were to make a dot, it's just going to stay there. And that's like the starting of my line. So it's like when you were to start a line. And if I click over here, then I have my line, right? So I let go and I click. Here's my other line. I personally don't, when I use the pen tool, I don't like it to fill in automatically because sometimes you want to overlap things. So I'm going to come over to the right here and I'm going to click fill and I'm going to turn it off. All right, this is still selected. So if I click here, it's still, even though I turned my fill off, I'm still in the pencil. I mean, in the pen tool. If I wanted to put them together, all I need to do is double click this point here, or I can go up here and double click. So if I double click here, oops, hold on. Okay, I'm going back. If I just click, I forgot about that. Oh no, because I went out of it. Oh, here. Sorry, you have to look and see where the black, see how there's a black ring around it. I always forget that. So if I look in the black ring here, let's see if I can get it to, oh man. All right, so I can't get it to go back, which sort of stinks. So what I would have to do then is I would have to create like a line next to it. Oh my, look at, I'm like just struggling here. So I'd have to like make new lines and then see how that circle came up. If I click it, oh, because it's only attaching to that. So that's one thing that you are going to have to be aware of. If you want, hey, get out of here. If you want to keep a shape the same and you want it to be closed, like I can turn my fill off, but I can't really go back a lot or undo things because then it takes like the selection off of here. So if I wanted this to be a closed shape, see how there's a little circle next to my pen tool? If I click, it closes the shape. And now if I fill it in, it's just in that shape. So that's one thing to be aware of. I'm actually going to take all this right here and delete it because I don't need it. All right, I want to show you a different part of the pen tool. So you guys seriously I'm still learning here, so just bear with me. So that's one thing about that pen tool. Now, the other thing about the pen tool I want to show you is this. So if I click here, I make a line and I click here, I'm going to turn my fill off. These are just lines, right? But if I wanted a curved line now, I click and I hold, don't let go, and I pull, and it's going to make a curved line for me. And then automatically, because this is curved, this next line is going to be curved. So I'll show you. I'm going to close the shape. See how that's curved? These little handles here are very useful. So if I click on the end of a handle and I bring it in, I can make my curves different ways. So I can mess around with that. Let's say after doing this shape, I'm like, man, I wish this shape was curved. All I have to do is come here and double click it, and it adds handles on it for me. And I can change my curves on this end as well. So the pen tool is really awesome for that reason. The text tool we'll talk about a little bit later. We're not going to talk about it right now. The arc tool, it just sort of gives you a big arc, and you really can't change how it looks, like where you can change this part a little bit. So the arc tool you can use, but it just stays an arc. So that's one thing about that. And then your line tool is, sorry, you have to click and drag. Same with the arc tool. I did not specify that, sorry. You have to click and drag for the line tool, and there's a line. And I can change the color, like let's say I wanted red as my color, and I can make it super thick, and I can make it like a dot dash dot. Oh, it didn't do it. Hold on. So if I want to select something, I just need to go over here, and this guy, this is my favorite tool in this program, this guy, then I can select it, and it didn't change my dash. Let's see if I can change it to something else. Interesting. Oh, there it is. So I sometimes, like in these numbers down here, if you mess with them, see how it changed that? It will change what the dashes look like, how far apart they are, those kinds of things. So you can mess around with this and really get it. Like, let's go back here and see if it did anything. Let's mess around with this a little. See? So if I mess around with these, and you can see how this changes up here. So you just sort of like keep continuing to mess around. But after you're done, like let's say this is what you've done, you go up to File and you go to Save As. And from here, it pulls up your whole Google, like look at how many Google things I have in my drive. It pulls up your drive, and you can save it in your drive. I personally would make like a new folder in my drive if I were you guys. And I would label it like visual design, and then I would save everything in that area. So that is it for today. I want you guys to practice and mess around with the shape tool, with your layers. Like let's say I didn't want all these layers, I can come back in here, and this little guy here says I delete the layer. So if I don't use all these layers, then I wouldn't have to. But realistically, I should have put like my line and my arc tool on a different layer. Sometimes we get caught up with having them. So let's see. I want to see if I can move them. I have not tried that yet. So let's see if I can take this and move it. I can't. Bummer. In Illustrator, you're able to take things from other layers and move them to a different layer, but it doesn't look like you can do that here. So that's why it's really important to try to get everything on its own separate layer. But that is it. So you guys have fun, experiment, do some silly things.